Ladder's a precarious thing. Points go up and down. But what if we could save those precious points from slipping into the abyss? Well, welcome to the first episode of Ranked, and on this show we're here to break through those plateaus of getting better. We pair one of our community members with a StarCraft 2 coach to help them reach the next goal. Saga, Diamond 3 Zerg, is paired with Pro Zerg coach Matiz. And at the end of our season, we will be able to see this trainee go up against a challenge to see how they did. Okay, let's dive in.
Okay, hello everybody. So I'm Matiz. I'm StarCraft 2 coach. I actually make a living out of this for like 4 or 5 years already, but I have experience. I started coaching in 2011 when I was a coach of Pro House in Poland, and then apparently it worked out kind of nicely. So I coach pro players. I coach Laser. I coach Soul. I worked a lot with Nerdcho as well. And in the Pro House in 2011, I worked with Snoot and a couple of others that are kind of not remembered anymore, although they were great players, I think. I coached something around 120 or 110 people privately, just normal people who want to get better at StarCraft, and it's a really cool job actually. I'm super happy I'm allowed to do this. You know, it's amazing that I can just talk about my game, and my cat is harassing me. So right now I specialize in Zerg, but I also learned a little bit of other races. I started learning. Strategy to coach decision making is actually a little difficult because it's difficult to teach someone a lot of knowledge, I guess, right? So what I usually do is try to analyze replays together and just figure out a couple of rules that are gonna simplify a lot of things for him, right? So for example, quite often what I do is normally I spend like half an hour in one replay or 20 minutes or something, but in case of gathering game knowledge, sometimes it's better to just watch a lot of different replays, but very short, quickly, right? So for example, 7 replays in an hour, but 5 minutes each, right? So this shows as many possible situations as possible and just letting him know what to do in that situation, right? And creating some clear guidelines. Okay, hey Saga.
Hello, Matiz.
Okay, perfect. All right, so before we start, we could talk a little bit about your expectations about this coaching, right? Because obviously some people want coaching to become pro gamers, some people just want to get a little bit better. So do you have any particular expectations so that I could also adapt better to what you need?
Yeah. I'm not looking to become a pro gamer, but I am looking to improve. And you, I think, will be a good judge of what I need to improve on looking at the replays. But I think I expect to work on things like my macro and decision making, and maybe learn some new builds or refine some of my builds, or
And what about your goals? Do you just want to get better? Do you want to get to masters or something, or grandmaster or diamond 1 or something?
I think I'd be happy if I made it up to, because we're having 3 sessions. I think I'd be happy if I made it up to Diamond 2. I don't think that'll be hard because I've already made it halfway through Diamond 3 before, and I could just basically, all in my way up the ladder if I wanted to.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's actually a very good point that you bring up, right? Are we here so that you achieve your goal and get to Diamond 2 the easiest way possible? Or do you want to, learn to macro, right? Like, that's a very important distinction, right? Do you want to all in your way to Diamond 2, or do you don't care about that Diamond 2 soon, and you just want to get better in macro, for example?
Yeah, I think, I've heard that to learn StarCraft, it's better to not do so many all-ins, but to work on your macro game. So I'm looking more towards improving and learning rather than reaching a certain mark on the ladder.
Okay.
But I think, like you said, Diamond 1, I think Diamond 1 would be, I don't know, we're supposed to have 3 sessions, and really what I'd be looking to do is on my end to have some consistent practice, really.
Okay.
And I know if I practice right, then I will improve, and I'll be happy with that. And so I'm looking, to spend some time regularly with StarCraft and do the proper type of practice. That's
Okay.
kind of my big goal, really.
Sure, makes sense. Right. Well, let's begin with what kind of matchup do you want to start with? Which of these 3 plays?
It doesn't matter to me, really. The first one is a win. The second 2 are losses. The first one I wanted to look at because he sent early 6 lings, and I wanted to know what's the right response. I did win the game, but I didn't know. Yeah.
I'm gonna load it up then.
Okay.
Yeah. So from what I've seen before, right? We actually met before a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think your biggest weakness right now is probably your decision making, right? So that's probably something that we can have a look at, right? I haven't. So basically, my method initially is usually just identifying your biggest problem and then working on it, right? And obviously, there are different ways of working on stuff, right? If it's micro problems, then we discuss how to micro and then you practice it. If it's macro problem, then I tell you how to macro better or give you exercises how to do it. And when it comes to decision making, well, then we just have to create some nice guidelines of how to act in certain situations. Right? So let's identify what is your biggest weakness right now, and let's see what can we do about it, and let's have a look at these 6 links that you were talking about. So most of people actually have a production tab opened, but for Zerg I like to have units tab opened because I can monitor your larva count and your drone count, right? And these are probably one of the most important things there. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is 1717. And you see these links. So what do you think when you see these links?
What I learned to do was to save my larva until the 2-minute mark. So it's before I build an overlord, so that I have larva to build Zerglings.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I really don't know what the right number is to build. I know that when he sends 6 links like that, is it a 12 pool or a 13-12? And I know sometimes they go into banelings, but I don't really know a lot about that.
All right.
Yeah, obviously, I have enough Zerglings to defend what he did. He's not sending any more.
Yeah. So basically, you want to. This overall is very important because you want to build as many links as he does, and just defend, right? I think you went for 2 base. You go without speed, right? So this is 2 base roach. So you don't want to build too many links because it's obviously bad, right? So you want to scout with this overlord, and if there are any slow links coming your way, by the time you see them here, you're gonna be able to produce them here, right? So you don't want to exceed the number of the links he sent your way. And since this is a gasless opening, you want to mostly rely on spines and queens, and most of larvae should go to drones anyway. Obviously, if this is an all-in, then you want to build some links to defend, but generally you want to really avoid building links as much as possible. And it seems to me like you struggle to identify what kind of early pull you're facing from what you just said.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, and this is good to take a note, for example, right now, because it's quite technical knowledge here. So basically, if the links arrive when your hatch is almost done but not done, that's 12 pull. If the links arrive just a tiny moment after your natural is finished, then it's most likely 13-12. And anything later than that is some kind of later pull. So, for example, 17-17 usually arrives around the time your links are out.
Oh, so that might have been what that was. Or
yeah,
I didn't actually.
Yes.
It was 17-17. Yeah, I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, so 17-17 is quite macro-oriented opening. These 6 links are just a distraction. If you didn't build links, they might deal a tiny bit of damage, but they are mostly, I think he's just scared of early pulls. My interpretation of this is he doesn't know how to handle early pulls, so he just plays super safe, but he ended up playing against someone who goes hard first.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to continue watching this replay, or you just wanted to talk about these links?
I don't know. I think it might be worth continuing.
Okay.
I'm sure you'll have stuff to say.
Okay, that's we can find something, I guess. Mm-hmm. Okay, so everything is fine here. So what's your plan now?
It's the two base roach. I get about maybe 16 roaches, speed +1 and attack, and maybe something to talk about would be the timing of the the third base when you're going for that build.
Yeah, and probably what's more important is timing of your lair. Because timing of your lair is extremely important, because it basically defines how early your speed for roaches is gonna be. So it defines when your push is gonna happen, right? So you get it right now at 4:20, and it's super late. Basically, it should be ideally before 3-minute mark, and the latest should be something like 3:10, 3:15. You know.
Usually, I get it as soon as my first queen finishes, but his early attack threw me off.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I think what I might have done, I'm trying to remember, I might have used the extra gas to do 1-1 instead of +1, just because, I don't know. I thought it might be a good idea.
Which is okay, but the benefit from having sooner lair is way bigger than the benefit from +1 carapace.
Yes, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, so generally, sorry, with this kind of plan, you want to lair is just too important to delay it, you know. So yes, 2:45 is the perfect timing when you just finish your queen. But ideally, and yes, there was some harassment, so it's fine to delay it a little bit. But you delayed it by entire minute, even minute and a half, basically. Right.
Yeah.
So this is a big problem, because right now you're about to, so taking a third should happen around now, right? So maybe not yet, but like around 5-minute mark, right? So that's good, right? You're taking it seems, but you're supposed to also have a couple of roaches to protect that third, right? You don't want to take a third. Well, you had some links, so that's fine, right? But you usually want to take them, so the third is gonna be always much later than your opponents, but you're gonna have some roaches, so you can defend it, right? So you took it at a reasonably good moment, but the big problem here is that your speed is super late. Yeah, maybe let's have a look a tiny bit from your perspective as well, how you're managing macro and stuff like that. Well, I guess it's so early in the game that we can't really tell that much. Yeah, so
So, are there any exceptions to like the general rule you're saying is to take the third when you have a couple roaches out? And
yeah,
are there
or
any...
when they are in production, right?
Oh, okay. So are there any other variations of that build, or is that sort of a general solid?
Yeah, because the problem is the problem are speedlings, obviously, right? So you need something to deal with them, and you don't want to build roaches before you get a reasonable drone count, right? So basically the only exception is when you face a gasless play as well, right? So if he doesn't get speedlings, then you can get your third base significantly sooner.
Okay, and you wouldn't
Great.
want to get it later though, would you? Or because sometimes if I try to take it later, then the build doesn't seem to work very well with building. I want to build drones, but it's not ready yet. So you wouldn't want to take it any later than 5 minutes or so.
Taking that third is important to not delay. It's very important to not delay it because it's already delayed a lot. Right, so that means so with this build, everything has to be pretty smooth because your third is delayed by 2 minutes already in comparison to him. So if you delay it by another 30 seconds, that's a really bad thing. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, your goal is still to get your third as quickly as possible, right? So for example, that second Evo chamber that you built also delays your third base, right? So, getting a second Evo chamber is necessary to a wall, but getting that carapace upgrade, I don't think you want to get a carapace upgrade over the third.
Okay.
I don't think so, right? So, so you still want to rush it, but obviously you need to have some protection, right? So that means a couple of roaches, some additional queens and stuff like that, right? And obviously, if you're playing mirror against gasless, then the earlier you get the third, the better, pretty much, right?
All right.
And here you're just killing him, right? He overdroned, he didn't scout. So in this case, if you want to drone up, you always want to monitor the drone count at the third base. And also roach army size, right? So there should be an overseer from your opponent. There should be overseer flying and checking your drone count at the third. And if there was no drones like this, then just he should cut droning much sooner. And in general, against gasless openings, you want to cut droning at around 48, I would say. On some maps, even sooner. Depends on what kind of early all-in he goes for. I guess there's not that much to debate here. You just roll him and you kill him, so it's good. Killing a third is usually enough to be in pretty good shape there.
Yeah.
So the problem here is that also you're taking a little too fast.
Okay.
Roach Ravager versus Roach Ravager is very tight matchup. So it's very easy to randomly die, like your opponent did. So if you overdrone by five drones a little bit, right? If you get your Hydra Den too soon and Infestation Pit too soon, then that means he's gonna have 3 more Ravagers, and he can build them basically close to your base, right? So generally, you should begin teching at least at 130 supply, and some people even claim you should begin teching at 170 supply, or even 180, right? So this is definitely way too early, and if he was building tons of roaches, he could be able to even punish you for that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess that's all about this replay. Do you have any questions?
I don't know if it just makes me think of this is the Vibrance to GM build, and people seem to know how to play against it now, and so it'd be interesting to look at this. For me to look at this build, I often die to a Speedling and a Baneling, just sometimes only Speedling or a Baneling timing, like right before I get the roaches out.
Yep.
And it often happens because apparently a good time to to build the wall or to build your buildings is in a normal game, maybe if you don't get attacked, but in a normal game is after you've spent the larva for your first inject, then and it seems like just when I'm getting ready to build those buildings, or just when they're not fully built yet, then somebody hits me with and probably my problem is scouting then probably.
Yeah, the problem is that it's very difficult to scout with this build, right? So, but definitely you could scout, at least initially, with 2 Zerglings that you built. You just right-click them to, to the main of your opponent, and then just see what's going on, right? So you want to scout if there are any irregularities with the drone production, right? Are there some larvae that's not being spent, or is there too many drones or too little drones or something like that, right? So that gives you a warning against the earliest Linkbane pushes, and against any kind of later ones, you kind of just have to re-wall and wait for the roaches. So basically, when you see Speedlings coming out of his base with your overlord like this, right, then you just wall. You strengthen your wall by a lot, and then you start your roaches, right? So obviously you cannot get supply blocked because you're gonna die. So here, I'm not sure how you act when you're being all-in, but you're supposed to re-wall, right? So for example, you bring queen here, right? So that you've got wall, but this tumor actually is a problem. You should probably get it somewhere else so that you can complete the wall, right? So there should be another Evo chamber here. Then once you see that he's starting to attack your other buildings, there should be another Evo chamber, another Evo chamber, another Evo chamber, another Evo chamber, right? Kind of like Protoss that's defending against Linkbane or Lin, right? They wall for a reason. And if it's very, very vicious baning bust, then sometimes they just have to rebuild the wall over and over again. And eventually, your queens that are shooting from behind the wall, or new roaches that you're gonna build, they're gonna kill enough links so that it makes it worthwhile. Obviously, you have to be sure that it's an all-in, right? If he just sends 15 Zerglings, you don't build 5 Evo chambers to survive. And obviously, having a spine crawler helps as well, right? So if you suspect it might be all in, you kind of have to preemptively, blindly build spine to be super safe. But generally, in the past, people were playing this build with a spine. So right now, people stopped building that spine, and I find this slightly greedy, honestly. So I'm not telling you should build a spine, but if your initial 2 links scout and you find stuff suspicious, then getting a spine wouldn't hurt, I guess.
Right, and okay.
So for example, for next session, you could show me, you could find a replay where you died to this, and then we could analyze what you could have done better to survive, right?
Okay, yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's go to the other replay then.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So my overall impression of the ZVZ was that I think he needs to work a little bit on polishing stuff, because it's nice that he knows general things, right? But things in StarCraft, quite often it doesn't matter if you know the big picture and all of these things, but details are surprisingly important. I'm rather the guy who doesn't care that much about details, but StarCraft really taught me that I need to do that, to need to care about these details, because getting Lair 1.5 minutes later than you're supposed to, yes, okay, there was distraction for sure, I understand that, but it's basically the build is not executed properly, right? So that means the attack that he made, it could have arrived at least 1 minute sooner, right? So that's very big difference between people who are in even masters and grandmasters, for example, that these timings are sharper, right? So you might think that 10 seconds here or 20 seconds here, it doesn't matter. It does, right? Because it's quite often the difference between killing someone and not killing someone is those 20 seconds that you missed because you built something too late, a little bit too late. Right? Okay, ZVT?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. So what's your plan for ZVT?
I take an early third base, and I build a lot of queens, and I get a roach warren at 4 minutes, and then make 8 roaches that come out about 5-minute mark. And
Okay.
then I go into Hydroling Bane.
And then?
And then I attack him around 160 supply. And
Just Mass Hydra Bane?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I build anyway, this is I don't know if I've ever played against this before. I let him kill the hatchery because my experience with bunkers is that you can easily lose a lot of Zerglings trying to attack them.
That's usually right, but in this case it's not.
Okay.
Right, because against this, so maybe let's have a look at your build first. So you seem to play a little greedy opening, like your third is very early.
Yeah.
Did you see it somewhere, or do you? Why is that?
Yes, I saw it somewhere. From Vibe.
Okay. Well, I also like this kind of third, honestly. So I also play it, and people do build a bunker like this against me. And if you know that the barracks are coming from, like if the units are coming from barracks in his main base and there's no proxy, then you should just overwhelm this with queens and links. So you should build like 15 links and then grab a bunch of queens and just clean it up. Because obviously bunkers with 4 marines are pretty scary, but if it's bunker with 1 reaper and 1 marine, it's not really scary, right? And you really want to have that third up. So in this case, when he starts shooting like this and you confirm there's no proxy and you see him, like you see this unit, you see the CV coming back even, so you just build 15 links and you clean it up, and your hatch is gonna be halfway HP, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. Because right now you're gonna rebuild this while you actually want way more queens. You're just 2 queens right now, right? Yeah, okay, you get more, but you also should probably start mining gas soon. Yeah, obviously at the beginning 300 minerals is very expensive. Well, that was a judgment call. Maybe in future you can just not make it, I guess. But the problem is that your build is generally quite unsafe, actually, because obviously it also depends on your level of your opponents. But at 4-0-0, there's the first timing where 4 Hellions can come in and roast everything. Did you encounter that problem?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, exactly. So either you wall your natural right now,
right,
or you just get speed and have it done by now.
Okay.
Right, so because queens plus links are actually good enough against Hellions, right? So the normal setup is like 5 queens right now, and I don't know, like 15 Zerglings, 16 Zerglings, and you're safe, right? But if you don't have speed, these Hellions are gonna run by past your links and past your queens. So it means to me that so either you go roaches now and you wall, or you go speed. And right now there is a glaring hole in your build right now, which probably makes you lose some games. And the higher you climb, the more games you're gonna lose. But it's fine to play without speed for links, but it just there has to be a wall right there. Right? And then queens, they're gonna just roam. So you keep the wall, and then you roam to the third with your queens, and then you get some roaches, and you can repel the Hellions. But okay, well, there was no Hellions initially, so he's going straight tanks. Are you scouting? You're scouting. Okay, that's nice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew it was mech, and when I thought I should go Roach Ravager. And yeah. But anyway, it didn't quite work out. I think you're supposed to, I heard you're supposed to focus the cyclones with your roaches. Get roach speed, and when they attack, focus the cyclones. Yeah. So that was my intention.
Well, let's see what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah,
Because Roach Ravager is okayish composition, but it's only good in mid game. Once Terran reaches critical mass of units, then all your Roach Ravager is just gonna disappear, and that's what I'm suspecting is gonna happen.
Oh, look at my money is very high.
Yeah, it's very high, obviously. Yeah, 300 exercise is very good to help with that. Right?
Yes.
And here, but also it's part of the build, right? You against Terran, usually at around 5 to 6 minute mark, you start to bank additional minerals. So that's a good moment to grab a fourth base and a macro hatch at once.
Right.
Around 6 minute mark, maybe. Yeah, 5 is a bit too early, but around 6 minute mark, once you saturated all your mineral lines and you start to slowly mine gas as well, then that's a moment where you start to bank up some money. So it's never wrong thing to get a macro hatch if you float, right? So I really recommend that you get a macro hatch right now, because it's just gonna be much easier for you to spend all the money, right? Okay, so you're going for a timing attack of some sorts, I guess.
Yeah, I'm afraid of Thors. I don't want him to get up to a lot of Thors, and so I thought I'd just attack. That was my reasoning. But he had a lot of tanks.
Yes.
Ugh.
Well, that wasn't that bad. You actually traded reasonably well. But it's an all-in what you just did, and you didn't kill him, so he's gonna be in pretty comfortable situation, I think.
And what makes it an all in? Is it a low drone count, or not enough tech behind it, or
both?
Okay.
Against mech, you want to be at around 80 drones. Or even more. I've seen Raynor go up to 100 drones even, and you want to tech up, because Roach Ravager is good mid-game composition, but once the numbers start to kick in for Terran, then suddenly it's very difficult to stay on Roach Ravager. So basically, you know how it works against Protoss, right? When they get 7 immortals, so initially Roach Ravager is very strong, but then they get 7 immortals and Roach Ravager doesn't work anymore. And that's the same case with Terran, pretty much, right? So the problem right there is that you lack the counter to tanks, basically. The counter to tanks, there are 4 counter to tanks. It's Mutas, but they are not that good against mech in general, so we can discount them. And then you have Swarm Hosts, Vipers, and then Broodlords. And you haven't teched to any of those. So Roach Ravager can work as well, like technically Ravagers also semi-counter siege tanks, but it's only when it's low numbers and it's pretty early, right? And also when you micro well. So I would say the main problem of this attack is as well that the first one, at least, that you didn't really micro too well. So we can have a look at that as well in a second. But let's maybe look at the bigger picture first. you're essentially all-inning him over and over again, and he holds, and then he builds a critical mass of tanks, and then you die, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to go into mutas, but I didn't have enough of them.
Yeah, Roach Ravager into Muta Switch is, you can play like that, although it's quite gimmicky, right? Because if he gets enough Cyclones or Thors, he's just gonna roll over them. Thors are very good against Mutas.
Yep.
Now you just die, probably, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so let's have a look why your initial push didn't work out, right? So I just wanted to make you aware that it's an all-in, but I'm also saying it's fine that it is an all-in, because dealing with mech is generally very difficult. Mech is quite strong. It doesn't require that much APM, so a lot of people in lower leagues, they can easily execute this. You just need to siege up your tanks and that's it, right? So all-in against mech, I don't mind. I think that's actually fine, because mech is super strong when it's maxed out, and if you attack him now, then it's very good chance that you might kill him, right? So do you want to continue playing like this, or do you want to take up? Because both options are fine, right? So we could talk about how to make your Roach Ravager all-in work, or we could just not focus on that and just change your playstyle to some kind of tech-based, which is usually more difficult. So I think we could actually stay with these Roach Ravager all-ins. We just need to do them better.
Sure.
Sure? Okay. Right, so first, obviously, the attack would come much sooner and it would be much stronger if you just spend your money, right? So basically, with Roach Ravager, I think you're able to max out right now. And we are at 120 supply. So imagine you attack him right now with 200 Roach Ravager, you're absolutely gonna stomp him. I'm not saying you have to right now. Let's say that's 8:30 or even 9-minute mark. With 200, 9-minute mark is absolutely achievable for you, I think, no problem, right?
And how many drones would you have?
The same number.
Okay.
Around 60, maybe 66, right? So I think what would be the best is, for example, so that if you want to continue doing this against mech, then it would be best if you just go against AI and practice maxing out with Roach Ravager until 9-minute mark or sooner, if you can. Because this has to be on point, right? Like, obviously we can talk about micro, we can talk about execution, we could talk about concaves, everything, and we will. But it's StarCraft is numbers game, right? If you're maxed out right now, you can just aim move and take hands off your keyboard and still win, right? So that's the foundation. You need to have a lot of stuff, right? So yeah, okay. So that's the first thing. So there should be a macro hash, there should be faster fourth, there should be injects on point, and just 15 larvae right now. That could be or should be 15 roaches right away, right? So before the attack, there should be macro happening, right? So whenever you attack, you should make a habit of making army before you attack, and then after you stop attacking, basically. Right? Ideally, you also want to macro a tiny bit during the attack. But for example, right now it's a perfect moment to do all the things that you need to do, right? Right now it's a moment to inject, then spend your money, and then attack, right? So that could be a really nice thing to do before you attack right now, because you're just gonna bank money and bank larva, and it's not good. And you want to have reinforcements while you attack. Okay, so that's the first thing. So if there were 15 roaches coming Terran way right now, I think that will already probably tip the scale. Okay, well, so against tanks. Let's see how you micro this, how you hotkey this, and everything. Okay, so we've got one big army in your hotkey. At least it's not F2, so I'm happy.
Should the Ravagers be separate, I guess?
No, I think they don't have to be. It should be mostly mouse, actually.
If you're multi... Oh, okay.
Most of the micro should be done with mouse. There.
Focusing down that supply depot like a champ there.
Okay, well, so let's again, actually, I want to see your clicks and what you're doing with your mouse right now and your keyboard.
Yeah, okay.
So you just A move, and what are you doing right now? You're throwing vials, and you keep A moving.
Yeah, I'm trying to do
and
3...
you just kind of watch your roaches dying. Right? Oh, your target firing cyclones. That's nice. Okay.
I'm trying to... I know 3 vials per tank, so I don't rapid fire the vials onto the tank. I just do 3.
Well, okay. So let's try to figure out how this could have been done so that you would win this, because I think you could very easily kill him with what you have right now against what he has.
So what if I came at his third from another angle at the same time?
Yeah, so basically, one of the most important thing, or pretty much the most important thing you can do here is to attack from 2 angles, pretty much. Zerg doesn't have that much micro during the fights, but a lot of work that Zerg has to do is before the fight, right? So setting up flank, pre-splitting, having a concave, stuff like that, right? So once you A move, there's not that much to do, right? But there are better ways to A move and worse ways to A move, So so let's look at this in detail. Okay, so you're taking some fire, that's fine. Okay, so here I would have one group, let's say, waiting here, and then the second group here, or here. But I think going from this direction is actually surprisingly good, so I actually like it a lot. So the thing is, when you attack from 2 angles instead of 1 angle, tanks are significantly less efficient, right? Because they deal splash damage. So if your army is grouped up into 2 pieces, then it halves the damage that they're doing, right? Because there's just less splash to do. That's one thing. And then there's a second thing. It's cyclones. They deal most of damage by kiting. So if you don't let them kite, if you cut them off from the behind, they just die, right?
Yeah.
So pre-splitting your army before the fight is something you want to do. Okay, so throwing vials, that's good. Tank for free. You took okay. Yeah. You took some damage on Ravagers, but you managed to make it work. Okay, so Ravagers always have to be in the back, right? They are squishy, expensive units, and Roaches are cheap, tanky units in the front, right? So after you throw your vials, you should box them and just right-click them back, right? Okay. If you do it this way, and then you let the Roaches come in close, and then you A move, right? Once the Ravagers are in the back, right? So it's very important. It's the same with Hydras or any other unit. That's expensive. Okay, so now you A move. And that A move is fine, right? But during this A move, you should mostly... Okay, you are throwing vials, that's good. Targeting Cyclones is generally a nice idea, but you should do it slightly differently. Because the problem is that you're targeting them down with your entire army. And on one hand, that's an overkill. And on the other hand, that also makes it very, very clumped up, and then tanks can kill it. So that means you should rather just box half of your units, right? And then send... so in this case, you're attacking down the ramp, which you kind of never want to do. In this position, I think what would be best is probably just going to the main base.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because against tanks, tanks are shooting, right? They're shooting, and you should probably just attack them from this side, and then... So half of these roaches, there's just too many of them, right? They are going to clump up. But imagine you're attacking from this, so you go from this, you right-click on this tank, you box these, you right-click on this tank, and then you just aim off and you roll him, most likely. But since you're so bunched up, going down ramp like this against splash damage is very, very bad, right?
Yeah.
But let's say you keep the decision to keep going at the third base, that's fine. So now what you should do is just box and just walk down with some of the units so that they don't get so bunched up.
Right. Yeah. Because
Like box right now. So, and you also want, almost always, you want to have a concave, right? So during this attack, it was difficult to form a concave, but right now it's he made room for you to make a concave. So you box these guys and you right click them here so that they can form a concave, much bigger one than the than the one you have right now. Right? And yeah, and I think that was a misclick, right? You right click the depot probably. Well, things like this happens. It's just nothing to worry about. It's just something that happens, right? Obviously. Yeah. So now again, look, you're bunching up big time your roaches right now. So it's super juicy shots. Like it's a dream shots from any tank, right? And actually, I think targeting tanks is more important than targeting cyclones. Cyclones, obviously, if it's Cyclone Helion, then yes, you want to target cyclones. But if it's tank plus something else, tanks are super important. So you really want to target them down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a couple of units here would be nice. Right? Just 4 roaches.
Right.
And when if you're not really able to attack that tank, you should just move out of its firing range, right? So you were standing here. If you started standing here, nothing wrong would happen, but you would at least not take so much damage, right? So basically, it all comes down to you have to try to lose less units during these fights, I think, and then split them better and pre-split your units initially, and and focus on trying to take less damage from tanks, basically. That's and macro up better before.
Right.
Okay. So so now once you trade it like this, I think transitioning into swarm hosts would not be a bad idea, because swarm hosts are pretty good against tanks, right? And you are not reach, so you cannot really go to hive. Cannot really go to broodlords or vipers, but swarm hosts are like poor man's broodlords, right? So right now getting 10-15 broodlords 10-15 swarm hosts would be possible, and he's super camping, so super campy, so I think swarm hosts would do a pretty nice job there.
And you sort of I've never used them, but you have a Nidus on either side and you rotate them, or
Yes, but you have really nice creep, and it takes a long, it takes a lot of actions to pull off a Nidus, So here you could literally just have them here and throw waves at him over and over again until he dies or you die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So so the second, so right now you don't want to do a second wave of this. Usually you just want to take up to something good, right? Okay. Because all-ins, low-tech all-ins, they work initially, but later on you just want to transition to something, I think. Right? Obviously you're playing from behind right now, so but once he amasses anything more than 140-50 supply, Roach Ravager pushes are very weak, right? So yes, you attacked at the quite good moment, actually, right? And you didn't manage to break him. Right now he has significantly bigger production. Look at how many factories this is. This is a moment to just transition to something else. And 15 swarm hosts, throwing them over and over again would be very tough for him to deal with.
Yeah, I don't know if people how much they use swarm hosts in Diamond League. I'm curious, but I don't really know because I'm a Zerg, so
well,
they only used them against me once or twice.
Well, in ZVZ they're not that great, I guess, right? But I think using them against mech is a lot of people do that. So you just build 15 swarm hosts and then you continue with Roach Ravager, and every wave you trade, you kill a bunch of stuff, and then you pull back, and then another wave you go in again. And it's very tough for him to move out because you're just gonna throw on wave after wave against him, plus also kite him with corrosive biles, and eventually he's gonna lose the entire push, right? It's very difficult to move out against Swarm Host, but on the other hand, it's very difficult to stay home as well, because you're just gonna take damage over and over again. So Swarm Hosts are actually quite good against mech. So I think it's nice to use them in this position if you end up in this situation. Yeah,
Right.
so I think it's a good idea to try to kill them soon, because it's the easiest thing to do. And then once it doesn't work out, then you try to go for Roach Ravager Swarm Host and hope for the best. And for example, next time we meet, we could analyze how to use Swarm Hosts and stuff like that, right? But first, let's see how you even use them at all. Okay, let's go to the other replay.
Sure.
Okay. The key things to remember about dealing with mech, I would say understanding that ZVT, that playing against mech is similar to playing against Protoss. So against Bio, the entire matchup is oriented against about how it's called, soft counters, right? So Linkbane can counter Marines, and Marines can counter Linkbane depending on the micro, depending on positioning, and a lot of different things. But against Protoss, it's a lot about hard counters, right? If you've got tons of roaches, then, and if he has tons of immortals, he wins, and if he doesn't, then you win, right? And that's the same kind of with mech, right? Mech is a lot about building composition, reacting to what is his composition, right? So, Thor is against Mutas against Mustang and stuff like that, right? And or Swarm Host or whatever else. And so things that you think about when you play against Bio, or a skill set that you have against Bio, might be almost useless against mech, and vice versa, right? So it's very important to think about compositions that you currently have, and what your opponent has, and how to counter it. While with Bio, it's mostly about positioning, micro, macro, and mechanical things. So, for example, Goody comes to my mind when we talk about mech, right? Because his mechanics were atrocious, basically, but he was a very smart person, and he knew how to adapt his composition a lot to what their opponent is doing, and he was able to beat them with, hilarious APM. So I think understanding composition hard counters is key to beating mech. All right, dirty cannon rush, right? Yeah. This thing caused me so much pain when I was playing.
This one, he didn't do a proxy gateway or robo or anything, and he was just being annoying, I think, I don't know, I should have, I don't know if I had time to cancel the hatchery, but anyway.
Well, you didn't have to. I think you could have very easily hold this with drones.
Oh, okay.
So canceling hatch, yes, that's an option. That's probably something you generally should do in most cases. But you were in such a very good position here that I think you could have easily held this with drones. So basically, canceling the hatch is when you see that you're not going to defend it, and it's just minimizing your loss. But the best way to kill the cannon rush is just to not let the cannons go up. So that means if you let's see. Okay, so what do you see here? So initially, you want to know about this early, and you want to react to this quickly as well. And per one pylon and per one cannon, you need at least 3 drones. So you need 3 drones to kill it if you start hitting immediately. But since your drones are in the main base, they are not going to start hitting immediately. So you need 4 drones per building. right?
Okay.
So that means if there's 3 cannons and 1 pylon, you send 12 drones and you hold this, right? Or 16 drones, I guess. Yeah. So you see a pylon right there, you immediately send 5 drones. Yeah, 5 drones. 4 start hitting this, and then 1 on patrol to make it difficult, or here on patrol to make it difficult for him to build cannons in those choke pointy positions.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you see it coming, so there should be a pull right now, right? You start attacking pylon, and so now once you see the first cannon go up, this is where you send most of your drones. I think sending, like leaving 3 or 4 is good enough, right? 4 or 5. If you manage to hold this and hold the natural, you win the game. If you if you lose like 2-3 drones at max, you win the game if you hold right now, right? That's usually what I go for. I think canceling the hatches, it's already a win for Protoss, basically. So
Yeah,
if you...
it's,
Sorry, yeah, go on.
he built like 3 cannons, and I'm wondering if that was too much, if he didn't need to build that many, if he didn't need to spend that much in order to accomplish.
Yeah, he probably would have accomplished this with 2 cannons.
Because
1 cannon is a little low to kill the hatch.
if you have, I'm just like, if you have 1 pylon and 3 cannons, then that's 550 minerals.
Sure.
Right? And the hatch only costs 300. So am I ahead then, or even if he does kill the hatchery, or?
No, you're not, because it's much more complicated than this, right?
Mhm.
Because hatchery for Zerg is not only just minerals, it's also
It's
mineral
mining
patches.
and production.
Yes, so you're cutting mineral patches that you have access to. You're also cutting your production. So your queens come out later. You have less larvae, stuff like that. And on top of that, let's say you get your 3rd base here. So you've got 3 bases. Then he has a pylon here, so he can warp in adepts here. It's much more. Your bases are much more spread out, so it's much more difficult to defend any kind of harassment. Oracles. It's a nightmare to if the oracles go between main base and this base, or they try to fly here, and okay, so let's say there are 3 oracles here and then 2 adepts here. It's just super difficult to deal with this, and it's much easier when you have when your bases are close to each other. So there's a lot of things to consider. It's not only the cost of the minerals. So ideally, you just want to kill these things, and you could look. There's so much surface area. These super good cannon rushers, they have pylon here, and cannon here, and fully walled, and then it's difficult, right? But this is really easy cannon rush to hold, because there's a lot of surface area around the cannons, so you can. I can't. And then so this means you can attack with like 6-7 drones, and they take down such a cannon very, very quickly and very easily. Again, 7 here, and I think even 10 here. So it's very easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously links arrive as well, right? Like your speed is finished. Your pool is finished, so you can just finish this off, right? Once you damage it with drones. Yeah, now you're already behind. So no matter what happens further, I consider this Zerg being behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so. And I think I'm right here, because yes, his natural is kind of late, but look, you're forced to build roaches. In this case, you actually are not. You could really just expand here and just play a macro game. That's probably the best option. You don't have to clean up this right away. Like if your hatch dies, then
That's true.
it can sit there and you can get a 3rd. But that's less optimal, but that's still better than what you're doing here, because you're investing so much into clearing these cannons, and they always go for Stargate behind, so Roach Avager doesn't do anything. Yeah, you hurt him a tiny bit by killing the pylon, but that's all. Now you are not, you're not gonna be able to do counter damage because he has target, Right? So probably much better would be relying on speedlings and then just going 3 base, 3 queen, and a bunch of queens, and that's all.
And then
Because
okay.
your third base is super late right now, basically. Sorry?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, so now, there's always a lot of hope in these attacks, and they never work.
I wanted to know what he was going to build to, and it turned out to be Stargate.
Yeah, that overlord could poke and scout, right?
Oh,
Yeah, so basically, Stargates are 95% follow-up to Cannon Rush. It's just very good. Yeah, these queens should be grouped up. There should be creep, right? So they are close together.
Uh-huh.
He can kill them one by one, but if you have them grouped up together, then suddenly they are much stronger. And also some relying on speedlings early on is quite good actually against Protoss because stuff like this, right? You just literally need 20 links to clean this up very easily with 2 queens. 2 queens beat 1 void ray, 20 links beat this, right? So losing this hatch was actually a quite big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because 2 base Protoss against 2 base Zerg is GG basically. So the game still goes on, and we can talk about what's gonna happen and stuff like that. But I want to make you aware that you're basically dead right now already. Right?
Okay.
Your drone count, you're 10 drones behind. He has 5 voiders already. You've got 17 hydras. That's nice, but unless you do an immediate attack with them, then you're dead. And he's even going storm behind this, so it's really strong. So the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I left some hydras behind. I don't know if that was right.
You should probably rely on queens to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay, so again. Yeah. Oh, obviously. Yeah. So right now you're totally dead, right? But you can deal with this stuff. So I saw Sue do against this, and it's very strong. What you do is just you grab a Nidus worm, and you grab a Nidus, here, or here, and you get 10 queens into the Nidus, and then 20 hydras into the Nidus, right? And quite often, hydras alone are not enough to beat SkyToss early on, but the queens are the things that tip the scale pretty much. So you're able to transfuse the hydras or even tank for them, and queens deal quite a lot of damage as well, right? So 10 queens here with 20 hydras would probably kill him, right? Because it's essentially just 7 void rays.
Mm-hmm.
So you lacked this element of Nidus plus queens here, and also just the timing and everything. You're just quite late with this, right? It hits at 7-minute mark for Sue. If you want, I can show you later the clip when he does it, or even I can write you down the build of how he does it exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so...
you could even link me, just if it's easy to link me the if there's a VOD or.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what game is it from, but I've got a clip from Twitch.
Oh, okay.
And I've got build written down. So.
Oh, very nice.
So I can send you later.
Sure, great.
Yeah, so here, obviously, actually you're holding this because he's not using the best composition out there, but it's looking pretty grim.
Yeah.
Okay, actually you're holding, right? But what kind of hold is this? Not the best, right? Because it's 68 against 63. Well, I mean, you're doing a really good job here, right? So as I said, from theory perspective, you were dead 5 minutes ago, but you're still hanging on, so that's nice. But right now, once the carriers are out, they're very, very cost efficient. Plus storm on top of that, so it's just slow death right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roach Hydra is actually not that great against Protoss. You should rely either on Hydra Lurker, or Hydra Bane, or Roach Ravager Swarmhost in mid game, or maybe Ravager Ling Bane. But Roach Hydra is just not that good.
Yeah, I got the roaches because of the zealots, but you're saying there's other
Yeah,
because
but banelings are much better against zealots than roaches.
uh,
The biggest problem with these kind of armies is that Hydras, and that's, I don't know, maybe Blizzard could even look into this a little bit, but Hydras, they target fire ground units first.
oh,
Right. And that's a big problem, especially, like...
because they can be very good against interceptors.
Yes, they can be, but they're not, right? Or so they're only in very specific situation where you have banelings. That's why banelings, I advocate for them so much here, because if you roll in 40 banelings, or let's say even 20 banelings into this, actually on creep, there's a high chance you might even kill all of this, right? And then your Hydras they can deal with 4 carriers or even 6 in total. But the problem is, look, so roaches, they are nice at tanking, sure, but they don't wipe out High Templars or Zealots immediately. And that's what you need to do to make your Hydras effective.
Oh, okay.
Right? So look at what your Hydras are doing, right? Okay, shooting the Zealot, nice. Okay, shooting a little bit of Interceptors, right? But still shooting at these Zealots. Yeah, that's nice kiting, actually. That's very nice. And now shooting at the Archon, right? Stuff like that. And now obviously storms are good, right? So. Yeah, so also banelings are semi nice counter to High Templars, while roaches are not, right? So Hydra Bane is very, very good composition, and here I think with Hydra Bane there was a chance you could even come back to this game, maybe, because your opponent struggles to spend money.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the counter to carriers are still, I think Corruptors are better than Hydras. But you didn't know they're coming, right? So obviously you had to go Hydras against Voidras initially. Yeah, and now Hydra Bane could still do the job, right? But against, the thing is, countering Storm Carrier, it's possible, but it's very, very difficult. So again, it's just better to kill them before they are ready, right? So 55 drones, 5 gases, 9 does 10 queens, 20 Hydras, and you just go and hope for the best. I think that's the best way to approach this, because right now, yes, you can win this, but it's just very, very difficult. You have to build spores, use multiple spellcasters, stuff like that. It's just better to kill him before this monstrosity happens,
All right. Yeah, here I guess I don't have detection, and I killed the mothership, but I can't do anything else.
Yeah. Killing Mothership is usually actually not that great idea, because it's not that strong unit, but it has tons of HP, so it usually tanks for other units. So you usually want to target fire carriers, which have a lot of DPS, or Archons, and targeting down Mothership doesn't give you anything, right? And targeting carriers helps you a lot because you kill them, right? So they don't kill your units. So obviously Overseers, you basically want to have Overseer all the time after you unlock Lair. In any matchup you should get Overseers. Initially to scout, and always you should have Overseer with your army. Just always. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. Alright, so I think that would be it then. And so I'm gonna send you the build for and VOD for Su.
Thank you.
And let's try to practice that Roach Ravager max out against Mech. Yeah. And also we can have a look at other thing and try to find some replays for when you're getting all in with Link Bane against your 2-base Roach opening.
Yeah.
And just grab some replays that you feel like are worthy of talking about again.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Got my homework.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay. Perfect. All right. See you soon then.
Okay. Bye, Matiz.
The critical mistakes with dealing with Cannon Rush that Conrad made, I would say, was again not knowing what to do. Right. So that we come back to game knowledge. because Cannon Rush is not difficult mechanically to beat at all, right? It's one of the easiest things you can do, actually. But you really have to know what to do. You have to be super precise with what you're doing. That's why Print F, this guy from America who's so good at cannon rushing, it's because he literally does it all the time and knows every single in and out of how to beat it and how to perform it and what's the best, right? And with dealing with cannon rush, it's kind of similar, right? Like there are 10 different types of cannon rushes or more, and against every of those there's very specific response that works, and everything else is completely garbage, right? So and you get behind, and if Protoss can play, they can kill you off with no problem, basically. So it basically means that you have to treat cannon rush with extreme caution and respect, because it can kill you right away. So it means you really have to just work on it and try to realize and know what to do against each of these scenarios and how to make how to win against this. So it's game knowledge and knowing what to do in every of those scenarios. So after he transitioned to SkyToss, his mistakes, I would say, so he was already very behind from Cannon Rush, almost in irrecoverable situation. But then he again kind of didn't know what to do, right? He just built his Hydras, he built a lot of roaches, right? But again, against Protoss, you have to, just like against Mech, you have to think about how your compositions interacts with the composition of your opponent. So replacing banelings with roaches, for example, was a very big thing, because it made his Hydras target fire zealots instead of evaporating the zealots and just start focusing on interceptors, right? So that's one thing. Or he didn't even know how to kill SkyToss, right? He just seemed to play like he was playing his normal style. And against SkyToss, you have to very specifically adapt, because there are like 2-3 openings that SkyToss has, and if you don't exploit them, if you don't hit with those tiny 30-second windows that you have to kill them, then you die. And obviously, still you can play heavy late game against SkyToss, and I don't think that's particularly imbalanced or anything, but it's just much more difficult on Zerg side than on Protoss side to execute, and it's very important at lower levels than Grandmaster, basically, to also adjust your strategies to how difficult they are to execute. And because different races are more difficult or less difficult depending on the moment of the game, and that's why a lot of Zergs like to do some kind of mid-game all-ins against Protoss, because in late game Protoss is not necessarily stronger, but much easier to play. So in order for Conrad to overcome his weaknesses and start winning more, I think he probably needs to start spending money better. Like, for example, with the replay that we watched today, and he was attacking, he was doing a lot of right moves, but when you've got 2,000 minerals in the bank and 600 in the gas, or even like 1,000 in the gas, you seem none of the moves you're gonna do are gonna work if you just don't spend your money. I think that's the first thing. And the second, he seems to not exactly know what to do in certain situations, right? So he just needs more experience, more coaching, or just he can watch more VODs, more streams and stuff like that. So it seems like his game knowledge could be a little bit better as well. And that translates into a lot of tiny details that he doesn't do right? So for example, he doesn't micro perfectly, because he doesn't know how to do it, right? So I would say game knowledge and spending money probably are two biggest things.
All right, that's it for this episode. Next time we put Saga up against more challenges and see if this coaching made any difference. All right, guys, catch you next time.